work your whole life, starting as early as 5 years old. I'm sure most of you know what it's like to go to school, straight to work, and then finally come home only to be faced with more work, homework. Now imagine that or worse being your life as early as 5 years old. Since children's hands were small and nimble, they could handle small parts and tools, making them very useful in factories. In the late 19th century to early 20th century, children were forced by their parents to work. It was crucial for all family members to work in order to keep above poverty level. Many children did not receive an education and suffered horrible health issues. After reading numerous materials on this subject, child labor in the late 19th and early 20th century was much more of a problem than any of us could have imagined. Child labor threatens the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of young children. After the Civil War, there was an industrial boom. In order to keep up with supply and demand, business owners had to hire more help. Children were a good source of cheap labor. According to Lau, Wang, Miller, and Lai, authors of Child Labor Today, found on labораwareness.wordpress.com, in the eyes of employers, youth were generally preferred to adults. Because children worked for lower wages, were easier to manage, and were less likely to protest to poor working conditions, they were more useful in factory settings. Although an increase in industrialization was one of the causes of child labor, poverty was also overall the main cause of child labor in the late 19th to early 20th century. Wages were so low that children had to help by going to work in order to support their families. Some employers would employ whole families. Factory owners took advantage of being able to pay children low wages. Although pay was low, every cent counted. According to Robert Waples, author of the article Child Labor in the United States, found on the Economic History Association website, updated October 7, 2005, for each child aged 7 to 12, the family's output increased by about $16 per year. This only amounted to 7% of an average male adult income. A teenage family could make an extra $22 a year, and white-aged males brought into up to $58 per year. Waples later mentioned in a 1917 to 1919 Department of Labor survey among families with working children, children's earnings accounted for an average of 23% of total family income. All family members had to work in order to keep above poverty level, and many had different jobs. Since there was an industrial boom in America after the Civil War, children worked many diverse jobs. According to the Clark Bennett, Robin Hodey, and Scherer, authors of the article Child Labor in U.S. History, found on continue-to-learn.uiowa.edu, updated July of 2011, American children worked in large numbers in mines, glass factories, textiles, agriculture, canneries, home industries, and as newsboys, messengers, bootblacks, and peddlers. Kids also ran errands and delivered firewood, coal, and ice. They could also be found on street corners peddling flowers, shoelaces, ribbons, and candy. According to Russell Friedman and Lewis Hine, authors of the book Kids at Work, published in 1994, children in coal mines often worked as mule drivers, copplers, runners, spraggers, and gate tenders. As I show here, there's a couple boys that worked in a coal mine, and they were very dirty and they had very bad working conditions. There's also a boy in a glass factory and children working in a textile factory. Children were very useful in the workplace because of how small they were. Children's hands were so small that they could handle small parts and tools. Although this is an advantage that they had, it also had devastating consequences. Often the machinery ran so quickly that children would get arms, legs, and fingers caught in it. As stated in the book Kids at Work, the accident rate for children in mills was 2 times higher than the average working adult. Along with accidents also came very harsh treatment. In addition, often children worked 12-hour days and 6 days a week. Some were forced to work the night shift. Many would fall asleep on the job and be woken up by their owners splashing cold water in their faces. Supervisors often bullied children and pushed them to work harder. Kids were forced to do exhausting and degrading jobs. According to Lau, Wang, Miller, and Lai, factory owners supported the notion of child labor by claiming it helped everything from the economy to building character. Because conditions were dangerous in workplaces, children suffered from illnesses and diseases. Factories were often human, making it hard to breathe. Glass factories were extremely hot and sometimes reached up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of molten glass is 3,133 degrees Fahrenheit, which often caused children to get burnt or cut. Kids were also exposed to fumes and toxins. Children acquired many health problems. According to the National Archives, author of the article Teaching with Documents, Photographs of Lewis Hine, Documentation of Child Labor, found on archives.gov, some suffered from stunted growth and curvature of spine. Also, they developed diseases related to their work environment, such as tuberculosis and bronchitis for those who worked in coal mines or cotton mills. Although child labor may be thought of as working in dangerous factories and cities, it also occurred in the agricultural settings. Many families during this time followed the crops. They wouldn't stay in the same place for a very long amount of time. According to the authors of the book Kids at Work, families were crowded into makeshift shacks that had no screens to keep out swarming bugs and no electricity or running water. Crops and money came first, so children were not allowed to attend school. Because of this, illiteracy and ignorance was not uncommon in farm hands. Some children were even brought from orphanages to work in fields. Child labor was a big issue in the late 19th to early 20th century, and many people tried to stop it. Although it was hard to fight against child labor, it took a great amount of time before laws were enacted to stop it. Advocates of child labor at this time included Grace Abbott, shown here, Jane Addams, shown there, and Lewis Hine, which was a photographer at that time and took pictures of these children. One of the first steps toward improving child labor was taken by the state of Massachusetts in 1836. They required children under the age of 15 to attend school 3 months out of the year. In 1842, Massachusetts limits kids' worked hours to 10 hours a day. Other states followed in their footsteps, but many did not enforce it. By 1936, the federal government decided to get involved with the matter of child labor. The Walsh-Healy Act stated that the United States would not buy products by underage children. Although this was a good step, there was still no law set against child labor. Child labor is a huge problem, especially in the late 19th to early 20th century. Although it is nowhere where it was, child labor is still an issue across the world today. The first step to stopping this problem is raising awareness to the issue and recognizing the size of child labor. No matter if the child is 5 or 12, they should not have to endure this harsh and terrible conditions involved with child labor. Child labor threatens the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of children and limits their opportunities in life.
7.